Hi, it's Sunday, June 16th, and we have a couple of different tropical systems that could impact portions of the United States, Central America, and Mexico as we head into the middle part of next week. One is this large area of disturbed weather over the Yucatan Peninsula that will translate northwestward and bring heavy rains and disturbed weather to the western Gulf of Mexico midweek. And the other is this system of non-tropical origin at the tail end of a front to the east of the Bahamas right now, which may move toward the southeastern U.S. around the same time, middle part of this week, and could bring disturbed weather there as well. We're going to start off with the Central American gyre that's currently developing around Central America. These are rather uncommon systems, but they can happen a couple of times a year, and they're very large. This consists of a very large rotating region of moist air coming into the Caribbean and rotating around, and then back down into the eastern Pacific, completing the circuit. And this is currently straddling the landmass of southeastern Mexico and Central America. We have a couple of embedded disturbances within this larger circulating region. One is Invest 90 Echo, which is near the Mexican coastline and the coastline of Guatemala right now. The other is a vorticity maximum currently east of Nicaragua, which will be rotating around the northeastern edge of this broader cyclonic envelope over the next few days. And what you're going to see is this whole thing translate toward the northwest into the Bay of Campeche and western Gulf of Mexico more generally over the coming 3 to 4 days. And this is why this is the mid-level steering flow from the ECNWF model showing the current state of things. We have a big high or ridge over the southeastern US. And here's our monsoon gyre or Central American gyre. And there's a little bit of troughing over Texas right now. And this is generally opening up this lane of flow out of the south or southeast into the Gulf of Mexico, all this troughiness kind of helping to draw all this moisture and the circulation itself towards the north. And so we'll see that happen on the European model here. Looking at the moisture plot, this is total precipitable water at the analysis time here as of the making of this video, and the MSLP contours broadly outlining the cyclonic envelope that we saw in satellite imagery. As we go forward in time into Monday, and then into Tuesday, you'll see this whole thing propagate into the western Gulf of Mexico. And there will be a couple of key pieces here. One is that the initial vorticity maximum east of Nicaragua is going to swing up on the northern side of this as the rest of it moves into the Bay of Campeche. So as we get towards Monday and Tuesday, we'll end up with kind of a dumbbell structure. Most modeling agrees that this will be rather elongated, and there will be a couple of vorticity maxima, one down by the Yucatan Peninsula and then another towards the north. This is the one that came up across the Yucatan Peninsula from its current location east of Nicaragua, and this ends up on the northern side of the envelope. What we end up with here on Tuesday is something very broad, very loose. There is no bona fide tropical storm really developing here, and this is a common theme of Central American gyres, is they take a long time to consolidate into something more compact, which is necessary for tropical storm formation. So this will take a long time to come together, and it's possible it never becomes a tropical storm at all. It's really about how much time it gets over water, and the answer here is maybe maximum a couple of days. You'll see the whole thing continues to move northwest, and then eventually into the South Texas, northern Mexico area, and it never really tightens up on the European model. However, what it is bringing with it is a lot of deep tropical moisture getting funneled into the coastline from the southeast. You can see these dark purple colors indicating the deep moisture and strong southeasterly winds even well away from the center of this very broad and loose area of low pressure. Now, one thing we will have to watch for in the evolution of this system is whether the northern side tightens up at all any more than the model currently expects. And we can see that on the 200 millibar map. Looking at the upper level flow, at the time when the system is dumbbell shaped like this in the lower levels, this northern side is well positioned where most of the upper level divergence is. There's a little bit of an outflow jet streak here out of the southwest, and the air is accelerating out of the Gulf of Mexico in this location. So air is spreading out here, upper level divergence promoting more thunderstorm activity, could amplify the northern side of the circulation. And there is still some uncertainty there whether something smaller scale could tighten up near South Texas relative to the broader circulation envelope. And on the European ensemble, we can see that there is indeed quite some spread on where the center of circulation could end up by Wednesday morning. This is a plot showing the cyclone location in all of the 51 ensemble members from the Euro ensemble each has a red number. And so we see a clump that are down here in the southern Gulf, but then there's another clump closer to South Texas that shows that northern side may be amplifying a little more. And there's a small chance that we have a tropical depression or storm kind of spin up in a little pocket on that northern side just before it rotates inland over the coastline. The GFS shows some potential for this, showing a little bit more tightening of the northern side of the circulation. You can see the main center is down here, but there is a bit of a trough axis extension up toward Matagorda Bay, and this could indicate a little bit of tightening up here. Now, whether or not this forms a bona fide compact tropical storm, we're going to get maybe a tight pressure gradient here and some onshore flow that could reach tropical storm force, even if the system doesn't meet the organization level to be officially called a tropical storm by the National Hurricane Center. The weather may feel similar. So if we get all this deep moisture, heavy rain, thunderstorms, and strong onshore southeasterly flow, we're in for some blustery times on the Gulf Coast of Texas and northern Mexico as this comes in. This is the National Hurricane Center outlook. Now up to 70% chance of a tropical cyclone forming in the western Gulf. These odds have been creeping up over the last couple of days. But again, it will come down to how much time the system has to consolidate over water, and that will be a little limited. So there's a chance it doesn't develop still. But either way, conditions could be tropical storm-like across a large swath of the western Gulf of Mexico. And either way, there's going to be a lot of rain. This is the GFS ensemble mean expectation showing all of this corridor of heavy rainfall translating toward the northwest over the course of this week. And you can see that there is a northern boundary to this that's a little uncertain whether it makes it all the way up into Louisiana or the Houston area. Some models do defer on that. Much will depend on whether that northern side really tightens up near the Texas Gulf Coast, like I mentioned earlier. But either way, expect in this area to potentially be dealing with a lot of rain. They do need it in the southern part of Texas, but hopefully we don't get too much too fast here. The Weather Prediction Center shows a slight risk of excessive rainfall, that is, rainfall that could cause flooding issues on Monday. And then on Tuesday, it goes up to moderate in the western Louisiana, southeast Texas, Galveston Bay, Houston area. And this could shift around a little bit as the forecast evolves and we get some of the details nailed down. But expect in this overall area to be dealing with possibly excessive rain as we get into the middle part of the week, starting as soon as tomorrow. You might have also noticed on the NHC Outlook, we have this yellow area east of Florida. This is that second system that I talked about. This is of non-tropical origin. So we're going to switch the satellite view here and look at the southwestern Atlantic. You'll see a big front kind of draped across near and south of Bermuda. And there's a little bit of northeasterly wind, cool northeasterly wind behind it, tropical southerly wind on the other side. So this is an old, dying, weak cold front. And there's an upper level trough over top of just behind that boundary here. And there's a little bit of a disturbance in the lower levels on the southeastern flank of that upper level trough near the tail of the surface front. And you can see maybe a little bit of rotation there. This is going to be the seedling for a potential subtropical or tropical system that could start translating westward towards Florida and the southeastern US over the next few days. Here's the GFS to illustrate what's going on. This plot here shows the upper level trough in blue contours. You can see them curving like this, and they illustrate the trough axis along the axis of curvature here. Over here is an orange contour indicating the near surface vorticity. That's our little seedling of rotation down at the tail end of the old cold front. And this area of green along that old cold front, this indicates the baroclinic or non-tropical forcing for rising motion that helps generate thunderstorms and spin up surface rotation, like this orange contour here. And so you'll see over the next day that this area of green is actually co-located with our seedling, helping to initiate that rotation in the form of that orange contour. And then as this occurs, the upper level trough here in blue starts to pinch off. You'll see that the main trough is up here and starting to move away towards the east. This part is left behind. And so as we go forward, by Tuesday morning, we have our disturbance outlined in orange, and it's almost co-located beneath a now cut off upper low to the north of Hispaniola. And this is a fairly classic, almost subtropical kind of setup. Typically, tropical cyclones are underneath upper level ridges, not directly beneath upper level troughs. So this isn't a fully tropical situation. But what now happens is the disturbance and the upper low that it's entangled with starts to move towards the west because we have a pretty strong ridge over the eastern US at this point, and this is generating easterly steering flow on the south side and just kind of directs this rather briskly, in fact, towards the northern Bahamas and the southeastern US. And you can see that the orange continues to amplify. We get a couple new contours here, but it's still entangled with an upper level low. Here's how the system looks on a low-level vorticity plot, or a plot of rotation. And we can see the system right here is a little red paintball kind of closing off on Wednesday morning north of the Bahamas. And then it cruises westward and starts to look what could appear scary here, little red paintball moving towards Florida. But if you look at the actual surface wind speeds here, it's not that strong. This is a tiny area just making tropical storm force, 40-mile-per-hour winds in that little patch of green there on the northern side of the system, and it's really just kind of a small fist of wind that kind of blows right through, associated with some heavy rain. And the GFS is the most aggressive model we have for this system right now. Most other models are weaker. For example, here's the European model showing something a lot more broad and not even closed off. This is an open trough at this point on Thursday morning, and it actually goes in a different direction towards the Carolinas and doesn't tighten up versus being tighter and going into Florida like the GFS. So you can see a little bit of uncertainty in the different model forecasts right now that still needs to be ironed out. Some of that's probably due to the formative nature of the system. The little seedling hasn't really gotten going yet, so there's still some uncertainty. And within a day or two, I suspect we'll have a pretty good forecast for this. But the GFS is kind of showing you what the upper end of possibilities are here. In all likelihood, this is not going to have time to develop into a bona fide, powerful tropical system with scary winds. And one of the big reasons for that is, again, its entanglement with this upper level low. If we go back to Wednesday morning on the GFS, there's the low location, and it's underneath of this huge circulating region in the upper atmosphere. And this is not that conducive. Contrast that with the system in the western Gulf of Mexico, which is more of a bona fide tropical system underneath an upper level ridge rotating clockwise here. And this is really setting a wall, all this outflow from the Gulf system, setting a wall over Florida that prevents this upper level low from moving too quickly towards the west. And that's kind of a big deal for the system approaching the Bahamas and Florida, because ideally it wouldn't want to be underneath this upper level low. It would want to allow the upper level low to move out of its way towards the west and allow it to embed itself east of the upper level low within this more tropical air mass that allows deeper convection, has less dry air in it. But as it stands, these two are going to be entangled for life as this moves toward the southeast US, and that's likely to make convection more shallow, perhaps less deep convective coverage, and there's not a lot of upper level outflow to exhaust air away from the system as well. And all of those things kind of combine to limit the ceiling on this system. And at least that's true in current modeling, and it makes physical sense that this will have kind of a low ceiling here in terms of the outcome of this event. However, if the GFS does come to pass and we have a tight little system east of Florida, there is going to be this strong ridge over the mid-Atlantic and eastern US, and so there is going to be this easterly fetch into the southeastern US in general. And so regardless of the details of this little system, we could still have some coastal, erosion and flooding issues and rough surf along this part of the coastline, which is often the case whenever we get strong wind out of the east. So we'll keep a lookout for that. And probably the maximum that we would expect from the system itself is a little fist of wind and rain to blow through, but until further notice, not expecting a whole lot more than that from this right now. One more look at the NHC outlook here. The system we just talked about is at 30% chance for tropical or subtropical formation, and you can see this area generally aligned towards Florida. Some uncertainty in the track still. I think once we see the tail end of that front pinch off and a little more consolidation happens, the models will come into better agreement on exactly where this little low will track. And then our other system in the Western Gulf, 70% chance of development with that. But regardless of whether it actually becomes a bona fide tropical storm, it's expected to be quite expansive in size, and there will be a large area of potentially heavy rain across northeastern Mexico and the northwest Gulf Coast, and perhaps farther inland into southern and central Texas as well. So that will be the primary story with this system, not expecting something to tighten up with big wind, but lots of water potentially coming in. So let's hope no one gets too much too fast. Be aware of those hazards as we head into the middle part of this week. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.